Welcome back, everybody. So we're finally getting to the bathroom. So what we have a long vanity with 2 sinks. We're going to save the vanity and reuse it. Not sure if we're going to try and paint it or change the color of it or just keep it the way it is. So if we look at this from the other end, so this floor is going to come out and be the gray ceramic tile that we put in the kitchen, because we have enough of that left over. The tub's going to stay. The tile work around the tub, I actually did that about 7 or 8 years ago. And you can see if you look there, that last row right on top of the tub, it looks dirty along the bottom. It's actually an iron deposit. We have very heavy iron in our water here. And after a period of time, it just starts to discolor stuff that you cannot get rid of it. So I'm going to take the caulking all off around the tub. I need to try and remove, just the thin, like a surface layer of grout in some of those tiles where you can see they're a little darker. As suspected, we always run into a problem doing a job. So we have a couple of issues that we've already come up against. Our first problem we encountered, lifting the countertop off, we left the sinks in the countertop. This is the drain that should be in the bottom of the sink. And this drain pipe should just slide out of this PVC down here. And I'm hoping they did not glue this, but it is extremely tight. The second issue, you drill the hole through the side of the cabinet and run that drain pipe through for this sink. So that's another issue, getting this cabinet out of here now. There's a coupler here and just a very short piece of pipe that's remaining. So I've chosen I'm going to cut this. I'm going to do it with a hacksaw because my reciprocating saw is going to cut that on such an angle it's going to make it a real mess to try and fix back up. So I'm going to cut it off as close as I can right to this coupler. Okay, things are proceeding along. We cut this drain pipe off like I said I was going to. There was couplers already on these copper pipes, so I just heated them up with the torch and pulled the shut-off taps and pieces of pipes right off of them. We took the first cabinet out already. There was 2 like 4-foot cabinets that are screwed together. Well, this is something I got to show you. So this last cabinet, something was holding it in this bottom corner. We couldn't see anything holding it. So we pried the toe kick off. Let me a flashlight if I have it here. Talk about an unfinished job. Coffee break must have came and they must have just ran. The last screw they were putting in to attach it to the wall, they just walked away. Screwdriver and everything is still there. So we'll take that last screw out and that should let us get this cabinet out of the way. All right, demolition work is coming along good. So we've got the laminate floor that was in here now has been removed, and the vinyl flooring that was glued down, we've pulled up everything that would come up. There's some squeaks on the floor down here, and it looks like they tried to solve the issue by just putting hundreds of screws in everywhere. And it still didn't solve the issue. It still has squeaks. Most of those are just going to be into the plywood subfloor underneath this. So if the plywood's moving, this plywood's going to move with it. So they needed to make sure they're lined up with the floor joists and get these screws into the floor joists to hold everything down. Stop that movement so you can stop the squeaks. So we'll fix that up. We'll take this 1/4 inch up. Then we'll come in with some 2-inch flooring screws. We'll find the floor joists. We'll screw down the subfloor to the floor joists to stop the movement. And then we'll start building things back up from there. Okay, end of day 1. We got all the old flooring material ripped out of here. Cabinets all removed. All the trim's been removed now around doorways and baseboards. I used a grout saw to remove some of that iron stained grout that we had. So it already looks a lot whiter back there. Pull all the old caulking off around the edge of the tub. It was just the caulking itself was turning a yellowy color. So that's all cleaned up. One significant problem we found when I was cleaning the tub out, and I don't know if this will show up, right there, there's actually a crack in the bottom of the tub. It's an acrylic tub, so we were at the hardware store today getting some of our plumbing parts that we were going to need for putting these drains back together, and we picked up an acrylic tub repair kit. So before we're done this project, we'll have to include that on the video and see how our tub repair goes. So today we're starting to put down the new material. We'll get this 1/2 inch plywood screwed down, all cut around the pipes and everything. Put that in place. And then if we have time, we'll come back and we'll do cement backer board. We've already lost a good portion of our day just running around with hardware stores and stuff this morning. Well, we're at the end of day number 2 now. And as we said, we were hoping to maybe get the cement backer board down, but we had lost a good portion of that day running around to the hardware, or today running around to the hardware stores. So we got the plywood all down. Everything's been fastened in around the pipes and stuff. There's a bit of a gap there you can see up to the wall, maybe 1 inch wide. That's all underneath the vanity. I'm not going to worry about filling in that 1 inch gap. We did get our cement backer board pieces all cut. So this one's all cut out for the toilet flange and stuff there for the floor. And it's cut for the piping and stuff like that. So we've got all the sheets cut. We had them all laid on the floor. Make sure everything fits. The next thing we have to do here now is get some thin set mixed up. And we'll spread the thin set out over this plywood. And we'll start getting this backer board anchored down. We're just starting to mix up some of our thin set mortar to put down our backer board there. So follow the directions that the manufacturer gives you on the package. Now depending on the size of the drill you have, mine's just a 3/8 drive, so it's not a heavy 1/2 inch drive drill, but it still mixes this stuff pretty good. A mixing paddle certainly makes the job a lot easier than trying to mix this stuff by hand. So I start out with just putting like 4 or 5 scoops in a margarine container that I use just to scoop some of the dry material out of a bucket into my mixing pail. Add some water and start mixing it, and you want to end up with a consistency like paste, as they say on the package. So as I'm mixing it, I can see, if it's going to hold its shape, because you want it to hold its shape when you're putting it on with the trowel. You don't want it so thin that it all just runs back together in a flat layer. It needs to have those ridges from the trowel to do its job properly. Now it says I got to let it sit 5 to 10 minutes, and then remix it again. So we're just waiting for that time now, and then I'll mix this up. We'll take it up there and we'll start spreading it out with the trowel. So to give you an idea, we were talking about the consistency of this. So when you come in here with your mortar and you spread it on, and then you use the notch side of your trowel, you want those notches to stand up. And they're 1/4 inch spacing, 1/4 of an inch deep. It's a quarter trowel that we're using. So when you lay your board down, the high points, I guess you want to say, will flatten out into the low points and give you a nice, even, consistent thickness of material. That's the whole purpose of using these notch trowels. But you have to have that consistency right. As I say, if it's too thin, these ridges won't hold their shape. They'll just flow back out again. And if they're too thick, they end up pulling off with your trowel and just rolling up behind it and stuff. So getting it to the right consistency is important, but it's not hard to achieve though. As you start mixing it, you'll get the hang of it very quickly. Day number 3, we got the backer board down with the thin set. It's all screwed in place. The joints are all taped. Same method as if you're taping seams in drywall, just different material. The fiberglass tape they use for this is made out of a different material than the fiberglass tape you would use on a drywall joint. The drywall fiberglass tape will break down with the chemicals that's in the thin set and the cement backer board over time. Yesterday, it didn't take long to put down these sheets. I said we already had them all cut out by the end of day 2. So then I couldn't do any more work in here because this stuff had to sit before I could come in here and walk on it. Time-wise, doing it by myself, by the end of the 2nd day, I think I had 15 hours into the job, and it took me about 2 hours yesterday to get these boards all down, fastened, and tape the joints. So we got about 17 hours into this job so far for one person. So today, before we get into actually tiling, Oh, and I did re-grout these tiles yesterday. I'm going to fix up my plumbing before I start tiling the floor. So we'll get this cleaned up, get everything put back in place, new couplers put on. That one, I'm going to glue my new coupler on the end of that pipe. And then I think we're ready to actually start putting some tile down. And when we do the tile, you know, they always tell you to measure things out, so you center it up. So you have, if a full tile doesn't fit from the tub down to the door, you want to have an even tile, so 4 inches at the door, 4 inches at the tub, that sort of a thing. I'm not going to follow that rule. I am purposely going to start with a full tile at the edge of this tub and work my way towards the door. Now I may cut, you know, even it out between the two walls in this direction, maybe. The only area you can see, tell me by the paint, where the cabinet ends, so where the toilet sits, you're only going to have that little piece there in behind the toilet. So it might not be that noticeable anyhow. But the reason I'm going to start with a full tile at the tub is because of that crack in the tub. If this thing is going to continue to crack and gets to the point where it's going to have to be replaced, I don't know if the next tub will be the exact same dimensions. So when this tub comes out, I can work off that full tile all the way to the wall if I choose to, and then that'll give me more options as to what we put back in for a tub. It doesn't have to be the exact same width. It doesn't even have to be a floor model, but the side panel that runs right to the floor. You know, we're not going to go to a clawfoot tub, but there's lots of other tub styles out there today that are oval shaped bases that would sit on the floor, in which case you'd want that tiled all the way to the wall. So whatever may end up in there for a tub down the road, if I start with a full tile there, then I have a full tile to work off of to continue on back if I have to. So that's my decision for starting with a full tile at that tub. To cut everything, lay it out, make sure it all fit where I wanted it to, and then pull it all, take them back up, start mixing up the mortar and actually get them down. I think that was about 6 hours worth of work in there. Worked out very well. As I said, I was starting with a full tile up there at the tub, and I'll go to the other doorway so you can see it better. I still can't walk on it in there yet because now it has to sit 24 hours. So it was about 10 o'clock last night when I actually finished this. So I'm going to not be able to work in here at all today because it's got to sit till 10 o'clock tonight. So that's okay. We've got lots of other work to do. Now I was going to say, so I started out with a full tile down there at the tub. And when I got back to this doorway, it ended with a full tile right in the doorway where I wanted it to. So I lucked out on that. And the width, as you can see, I just decided to go with the short tiles on the one side. So there's only 3 of them behind the toilet down there. It's not going to be that noticeable of a spot. Notched them out around the doorways. So I'm happy with how that turned out. So today, while we cannot work in here today, we've got the trim that we took off. It all needs to be sanded, fill all the nail holes, get it all painted. The doors are not going to fit now with the increased height of this floor, so I need to cut both of the doors down. And the cabinets, we're going to do some experimenting with the cabinets, trying to paint it and see how it looks. We're not going to actually paint the cabinet yet. We've got some doors off of a cabinet in the laundry room downstairs that are the same color finish on them. So we're going to practice on those first and see how they turn out. So today is going to be a day in the garage getting other stuff done while this has to sit here. So we have enough to keep us busy. So this is day 5 that we're starting now. And I've already got the first batch of grout mixed up and put down. You can see the grout lines that have been filled and the ones that haven't. So I'm just going to go mix up the second batch. We'll come back, and it might be the second batch, if I mix the same size, might be enough to finish this off. So we'll get that done, and then the grout, it says it needs to sit 16 hours before you're using the area. So that'll mean it's going to sit the rest of today. And while that's happening, we have decided we are going to go ahead and paint the cabinets that go back in here. So while this is sitting for its 16 hours, I'll be back in the garage working on that again. Yeah, it's a little bit noisier because the heater just kicked in out here in the garage. So I'm just using an old chocolate candy tin to mix my grout in. Follow the directions on the bag that they give you, it works out all right. So for the amount that I can work at a time before it starts to get dry, so when you're pulling the float across, you'll notice it's starting to pull more grout out. It's getting too dry to work with. So I know the size of batch I can work with, so that's what I'm doing. It's not a lot in there, but you're only filling that 1/4 inch line, so it actually goes a long ways. This is the same amount that I started with for the last batch, and I don't know if you noticed the area that I did there. I think it was close to 20 tiles that I got around with it, so for me that's all right. I'm not doing an exact measurement with a measuring cup or nothing like that. You'll start to know what consistency it should be at. You can always add a little more powder, a little more water. By now you've had practice already mixing your thin sets, your mortars and stuff like that, so this is just basically the same as mixing those. Just making sure all my lumps are broke up. There we go. That's a little bit thicker. Okay, so now I gotta let it sit 10 minutes, I said, for those ingredients to do their thing, and then we'll mix her up a little bit again. We'll go back to doing the tile. Okay, we got all of our grout down. That second batch that you saw me mix up was just enough to finish this off. So all of the grout is in place. We're just waiting now for the clock a little bit. It says on the bag to wait for 2 hours and then try and start getting that haze off of those tiles. So I'll have to be careful not to step on my grout lines and mess that up. But in a few more minutes we'll go back in there and we'll start trying to scrub some of that haze off. It wasn't too bad when I did the kitchen after a couple of hours. I used one of those Scotch-Brite scrubby pad things and a sponge, and it took it off quite well. So that's where we're at. I don't know how well it shows up, so I've done half the room now with that little green scrubby pad and a sponge just to wipe it up. So this is halfway here. So you can see this half I've already gone over, and this half I hasn't. So you can see the white cloudy haze that's on the tiles. If you look close enough, you can see some white spots right around the edges, and that still has to be cleaned up, but the grout's not set enough to be in there working that close to that grout line. I'll end up digging grout out. So we'll let that dry. At least we've got 95% of the haze removed, and it doesn't take very long. So that little Scotch pad there, half of this room took me 15 minutes. So another 15 minutes, we'll have the other half done. Then we'll let it sit for probably a few hours, and we'll come back with like some microfiber cloths, and it should be set up enough then that we can rub those edges of those tiles without digging out the grout, and that'll finish cleaning off the haze. So that's where we're at. So there's not going to be any more we can do in here for a while once I get this done. So we're going to move on to taking the cabinets apart, getting the doors removed, the hardware, the handles, the hinges. We'll start doing some sanding and painting on those. So as you can see, most of the stuff is all put back together now. So we finished cleaning up the grout after it had sat for a few hours, and the grout in the lines there had set up enough that I could rub around the edges of those tiles. So we got that all cleaned up, and then we'll be working for a day out in the garage, painting the cabinets and stuff. So this wood was all brown before, and the medicine cabinet was brown. So we sanded it down just to get a bit of a shine off, put that primer on that I have that's for going over Varathane, that sort of stuff, just to give it a little more bond strength for the paint. I brush coated the primer on, and I brush coated the first coat of paint on. And then I gave it a light sanding just to get rid of, smooth out some of those brush marks. And then I have a cheap sprayer that I bought to go with my air compressor. So I thinned out the paint a little bit for the spray gun, and I sprayed a couple of coats on afterwards. We had practiced on some doors from a different cabinet down in the laundry room, and that seemed to work out that we didn't get any brush marks and stuff in it. Probably can't see it. No, it's not going to show up, but yeah, take my word for it that there's no brush marks in there. The spraying did a really nice finish on it. So we got the toilet back in today, the cabinets, the sinks, all the draining, the plumbing's all hooked up. Caulking is all done around the tub, along the floor and tiles, everything there. We still have to do the repair of that crack in the tub yet. Trim's been all put back up now, and we've gone over and painted all the nail heads and stuff from it. So tomorrow it's finished putting the doors and the drawers back in this vanity. And a couple of door stops have to be put in, and this job will be done. I'm going to show you what the vanity looks like when it's all finished and put back together.